Hey everyone, and welcome to Boston Autoblog. Over the last handful of years, we have watched Hyundai really grow as a manufacturer. They went from being a company that was seen as being beneath the Toyotas and Hondas of the world to now in 2021 being one of the more premium companies amongst its competitors. Today we're taking a look at the Hyundai Santa Fe, a vehicle that in my opinion is one of the best in its segment, mostly due to the fact that it goes its own way. Rather than being sporty and performance oriented like the Chevrolet Blazer and Ford Edge, Hyundai took a different approach, and that was to be luxurious but also practical as well. Now, one of the reasons why the midsize crossover segment has grown significantly over the last few years is because Americans are really responding to the value these vehicles provide. Now, say you're strictly looking at buying a compact crossover like a Toyota RAV4 or Honda CR-V. It's quite possible they're just not practical enough. They don't provide enough space when it comes to the interior. Well, that's where midsize crossovers come into play. But also more importantly, it's the midsize crossover segment that might be a little more luxurious, offering better features and just overall refinement compared to compact crossovers. And it's exactly what we're going to experience today with the Hyundai Santa Fe Limited. So in this video, we're going to take a good long look at the Hyundai Santa Fe, see how it compares to other vehicles in its segment, and also see why upgrading to a midsize crossover is going to provide a list of benefits, such as performance, better practicality, more interior space, but also better features as well. Now before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to McGovern Hyundai in Brocton, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Hyundai inventory. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. It's amazing to think that the Hyundai Santa Fe has been in production for over 20 years. And what started out as an affordable compact crossover has gradually grown in size and improved in build quality to become a formidable midsize crossover in 2021. With Honda reintroducing the Passport, Chevy bringing back the Blazer, and brands focusing heavily on this particular segment, Americans are now looking at these vehicles as being the best bang for their buck. And specifically for Hyundai, they have given buyers a viable alternative to compacts while at the same time undercutting most of their competition without sacrificing overall refinement. Starting off with pricing, the Hyundai Santa Fe Limited comes in at $38,600. But keep in mind that all-wheel drive will be a $1,700 option. When looking at the configurator, you'll notice a $10,000 difference between the SEL and Limited trims. And while you can receive similar features by selecting the convenience and premium packages, the Limited will be the way to go if you want a mixture of an entry-level luxury feel while also having a good amount of performance at $40,000. While the Santa Fe wouldn't be seen as the most off-road worthy, ground clearance comes in at 8.2 inches, which is more than enough to take on snow-covered roadways and unpaved surfaces. When taking a look at exterior dimensions, it's around the same size as the Ford Edge. But despite its larger outward appearance compared to the Tucson, it's about 3 inches shorter and 2 to 4 inches thinner than most midsize crossovers, which may appeal to buyers who aren't looking for a 3-row SUV but want improved practicality over a Honda CR-V or Toyota RAV4. One of the major changes Hyundai made to the Santa Fe for the 2021 model year is a refreshed look and a new platform that underpins this crossover. Usually, we consider this to be a new generation, or at the very least, a complete overhaul. But outwardly, you'd have to look real close to notice the alterations, besides the front and rear fascias, as dimensions are identical. But there are some minor details that were changed to accommodate the design elements that make up this midsize crossover. Grabbing our attention first is the usage of chrome accents, rather than going with a gloss black look like most competitors. And just like we saw with its cousin, the Kia Sorento, plastic cladding has been kept to a minimum to give the Santa Fe a more upscale road presence, rather than being the typical rugged and sporty 2-row SUV the midsize crossover segment has slowly become. Another eye-catching cosmetic upgrade from last year is the T-shaped LED daytime running lights that adds a bit of character to the Santa Fe. Of course, with this model being a Limited, you will have LED headlights for improved illumination at night. Moving over to the side profile, the Limited will be sitting on 19-inch alloy wheels, which is an upgrade over the 18s found on lower trims. You'll have body color folding side mirrors, with turn signal indicators, and for added safety, you will have blind spot detection. Then coming around to the back, the Santa Fe for 2021 receives a redesign to the taillights, with a light bar that runs the length of the rear fascia, similar to what we're seeing with most new Hyundais like the Elantra. Compared to last year, Hyundai cleaned up the rear third of the Santa Fe by redesigning the turn signal indicators, as once again, they're not integrated into the LED taillight design, and can still be found on the lower portion of the rear bumper. Overall, the Santa Fe has an understated and more sophisticated style than some competitors, and that should draw in buyers looking for something that won't draw a lot of attention, while still retaining a classy road presence that we just don't see often in this segment. Under the hood, the Santa Fe Limited is powered by a 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that puts out 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. While not as attention-grabbing as the exterior design and the tech features we'll be checking out in a minute, another upgrade from last year is the performance you'll experience behind the wheel, as the limited trim for the 2020 model year had an optional 2-liter turbocharged engine, putting out 235 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. That added boost in power is going to make daily commutes enjoyable, and as we'll discuss during the test drive, also helps make this crossover feel less sedated like most competitors. For the drivetrain, front-wheel drive does come standard, but you can opt for all-wheel drive for better year-round versatility. For fuel economy, you can expect to see right around 21 miles per gallon in the city and 28 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you'll get a power-adjustable heated and ventilated leather seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side being 2-position memory for added convenience. It's the cabin that impresses the most, as there's now a fully digital gauge cluster, a 10-inch touchscreen, and a fighter jet-like center console that resembles layouts from luxury manufacturers. Starting off with a digital display, resolution and quality are pretty top-notch, but besides the variety of information you can scroll through, one of the coolest features we've seen in this segment is when using the turn signals, the blind spot cameras will be activated, giving you a clear view of what's behind you when you want to change lanes. It's also from this screen where the gauges become more aggressive when putting the Santa Fe into sport mode, giving us hope that maybe we'll see an N-line performance version in the near future. Moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, to go along with onboard navigation and the 12-speaker Harman Kardon premium audio system. If you're familiar with newer Kia products, the user interface will be very similar, and honestly, it's quite easy to use and get acclimated with. Of course, you will have quick access buttons found below on the center console to quickly and easily get you to different menus. But if you prefer just to use the touchscreen, this head unit responds very well with little to no lagging. By opting for the limited trim, a surround view camera with front and rear trajectory will come standard. And to make parallel parking easier, you'll have side views to make sure you don't curb your wheels. Obviously, you will have a backup camera with trajectory. And even better, you have a bird's eye view for a better perspective of how close you are to the car parked behind you. As we work our way towards the center console, all the climate control settings, drive mode selector, gear shifter, and 3-level heated and ventilated seat buttons can be found here. Despite the design being clean, it will take some time to get used to, as this layout is a bit more futuristic than most vehicles in this segment. For instance, if you're currently an owner of a new Ford crossover, you'll instinctively reach for the rotary dial thinking you're putting the Santa Fe in reverse or drive, and I caught myself a few times getting into that habit during my time with this vehicle. Even with the learning curve, it's great to see a center console and dashboard design with physical buttons, rather than having the user interface control everything. With the lack of a gear shift lever, there will be an additional storage compartment for a smartphone or wallet, and it's here where you'll find a USB input and 12-volt outlet. As always, there will be 2 cup holders found beneath the 2 front seats, and for the center storage compartment, there's plenty of room for small items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a massive panoramic sunroof that will let in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now for passengers in the back, we're going to start off on the passenger side, and I adjusted the seat further back. It's also somewhat on a recline, and I have a decent amount of legroom to work with here. Now, of course, I am 5'5", so I'm not the tallest person out there, but I do believe that if you're around maybe 5'8", 5'9", you could sit back here very comfortably for sure and not feel claustrophobic. And then even when it comes to headroom, you have plenty of it, even with this massive panoramic sunroof. And that's really great to see, because I think what Hyundai has done here is that they're emphasizing a vehicle that's family-oriented. So they made sure there was more legroom in the second row than up front. So if you have taller passengers, they can sit back here comfortably. If you have kids, they're going to be more than comfortable back here. They're not going to feel very claustrophobic, so it's really great to see. But even better, you can recline these seats as well. So if you're on a longer drive with the family, you're going on a road trip, maybe you're going skiing and snowboarding this time of year, you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy. And as we're going to find out in a few minutes, this vehicle is very enjoyable to drive. So I can only imagine that passengers are going to be even more comfortable and really enjoy the time they're in this vehicle. Then for the center seat, there's some great placements for my feet. But even better, there is no center hump. So you can actually fit 3 people back here for sure. The only issue would probably be shoulder room. And for average size adults, it would be a bit of a squeeze. But I believe you could fit a 3rd child back here for sure. And I think they'd be very comfortable, especially if they're younger, they're not as tall. They're going to be just fine. But it's great to see though, because a lot of brands do offer or do have a very aggressive center hump. And it takes away a lot when it comes to legroom, and it just makes you feel like you're a little bit more in a smaller vehicle, whereas the Hyundai Santa Fe is most certainly a 5-passenger crossover for sure. Then on the driver's side, this seat is adjusted a little bit further up. It's not necessarily adjusted to someone of my height, but I have plenty of legroom here. So overall, the Hyundai Santa Fe is a comfortable and practical crossover that I believe is most certainly worth paying extra for if you are looking at buying a compact crossover, because some compact crossovers can become very tight in the second row, and it's just not conducive for a family, whereas I believe the Hyundai Santa Fe offers enough room where you can most certainly be comfortable whether you are a child or you're around 5'8", 5'9", possibly 5'10". I just think this vehicle is great overall for a wide variety of sizes of people. Also back here, you will get 2 rear air vents to go along with 2 level heated outboard seats with the button found on the door rest. You'll also have 2 USB inputs to go along with a 3-pronged outlet, which we're seeing a lot more of in the automotive industry these days. And rounding out the rear seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside you're going to find right around 36 cubic feet of rear cargo space, which is very impressive, but also very comparable in size to, say, a Volkswagen Tiguan, which does offer an optional 3rd row. However, if you are looking at buying a compact crossover, you have a family, but you don't need a 3rd row, and you're looking for something a little more practical, then going with a midsize crossover like a Hyundai Santa Fe is the better option in my opinion. Also, I think pricing isn't that bad either. You might be spending a little extra, like maybe $5,000, but I think it's worth the price, even though you might be sacrificing a bit when it comes to features compared to a fully equipped compact crossover. But I believe the practicality in and of itself is worth paying extra for. So you can fit more than 3 or 4 bags of luggage back here if you are going on a road trip with the family. Also, you can fit groceries and smaller items, boxes if you are moving. And then for myself, I had my camera gear back here, and I had plenty of room for my camera gear with additional room for groceries or anything else I might be carrying with me. So that's what really impressed me the most, even with the second row seats up. Then with the second row seats folded, that space right on doubles in size to 71 cubic feet. So overall, the Hyundai Santa Fe is a very practical crossover, and in my mind, provides a lot of value for the price. And if you don't need that 3rd row, then going with a mid-size crossover, and even upgrading over a Hyundai Tucson might be a better decision. Also back here, you'll find 2 buttons on the right side of the cargo area, which will automatically lower the second row seats, which I think is very convenient and awesome to see, especially if you are on the go. You don't really want to manually lower those second row seats. It just requires too much time. So love to see that on this vehicle. And then once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. Alright, so let's take the Hyundai Santa Fe Limited out for a test drive to see how it performs, how it handles, and if Hyundai really has one of the best mid-size crossovers on the market today. So the first thing that stands out to me getting behind the wheel of the Hyundai Santa Fe is just how high up off the ground you sit. I mean, wow, I feel like I'm in like a full-size SUV and an off-road worthy SUV at that. The seating position is very high. You have a nice vision in front of you to work with. The A-pillars are not very aggressive at all. And I have to say, this gives you a nice sense of being in a very safe vehicle. That's what I like. One of the really cool features about the Hyundai Santa Fe is that with the digital gauge cluster, and I saw this with the Kia Sorento, is that when you're taking a turn, once you engage that turn signal, you'll have camera angles. So if you're taking a right turn, you have a blind spot camera, and it shows you what's in your blind spot. It adds a lot of safety. And some brands offer this, some brands don't, but I would love to see that become universal. It's a great feature to have, especially now where a lot of people aren't really checking their blind spots. They're not really focusing on the road anymore because they're all focused on the infotainment systems or their smartphones. So I love seeing that. Now, getting into the quality of the interior, it's actually really nice. And when you're spending around $42,000, this is what you want to see. And my point with the Kia Hyundai family is that they've gone in a whole different direction than other brands that they're competing against. I think, Honda with the Passport, Chevrolet with the Blazer, and Ford with the Edge, they've all gone sporty, where Kia and Hyundai have decided to go in a luxury direction. And at $40,000, you feel as though you're receiving quite a lot at that price point, especially when it comes to technology, but also the fit and finish, and even just the dashboard layout. This is very premium stuff. And, 15 years ago, we wouldn't say that about Hyundai products. And now I think it's very safe to say that they're one of the best when it comes to interior design and quality when compared to the Hondas and Toyotas of the world. All right, so let's put this car in sport mode. I do need to get around this slower driver. Wow, does this pull? Holy moly. I did not expect that. So let's get on the highway, do some highway driving, and in cornering, you can feel the body roll for sure. This is not a sports crossover at all, so it doesn't have sports tuned suspension. So definitely keep that in mind. You're not going to want to throw this around corners on a spirited drive, but that's not what this vehicle is meant for. It's meant for you to bring your family along with you on long road trips, but let's see how it performs. It pulls. You feel that 311 pound-feet of torque. I'm impressed. I'm actually really impressed. I do want to put it back in comfort mode though, just because I don't like the sensation of sport mode in vehicles that are not performance oriented. You definitely have enough passing power for sure. You can get around slower drivers with ease. I'm thoroughly impressed with how this vehicle is handling and performing. I was not expecting that. Hyundai and Kia have done an amazing job by giving you a driving experience that's not dull and boring like most Japanese manufacturers, because one of the issues you now have is that brands will go with CVTs. And I think a lot of people still prefer automatic transmissions. And a dual clutch transmission is one of my favorites, even though I'm a big fan of ZF8 speeds just because of how smooth the gear shifts are. But for a vehicle that's not sports oriented, and you're not buying this to throw around in corners and to, drive aggressively, performance is very impressive. You don't get thrown back in your seat, but you feel the power. You feel the 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. And usually with crossovers, you don't get that sensation. I think it's probably because of the dual clutch transmission. It just gives you that more engaging driving experience. And I have to be honest, I think Hyundai, even though they're leaning more towards the luxury side of things, they could most certainly make an N-line for the Hyundai Santa Fe, and I think people would most certainly buy it. So what are my final thoughts on the Hyundai Santa Fe? And I have to be honest, I think this vehicle can be cross-shopped with 3-row passenger SUVs. Also, it can be cross-shopped with compact crossovers as well. And that's what really intrigues me about the mid-size crossover segment, because I think you can cross-shop a Hyundai Santa Fe Limited with a Toyota RAV4 Limited. And I know a lot of people would argue that, well, the Hyundai Santa Fe is very pricey. You're looking at spending right around $43,000, and that's a bit out of my budget. But if you're looking at buying a Toyota RAV4 Limited and a well-equipped model at that, you're spending right around $40,000 for a well-equipped model, and now you're in a dilemma where do you spend a little bit more for a bigger vehicle, or do you stick to the compact crossover? And I think that with the Hyundai Santa Fe, it's more practical. If you have a bigger family, you're going to want to go with this vehicle because, as we demonstrated with the second row seats, the middle hump isn't very aggressive. So you could theoretically fit a third kid back here. You wouldn't necessarily need to go with a Hyundai Palisade. Now, of course, I think if you're going third row, maybe you're looking at a Kia Sorento, the Hyundai Santa Fe's cousin, but I like the midsize crossover segment just because I think you have this perception that you're getting a lot more for the price. That if you're looking for a well-equipped compact crossover, which will cost you around $40,000, you might as well look at upgrading to a bigger vehicle. And I think the Hyundai Santa Fe is that perfect blend of being luxurious or entry-level luxury, being practical, but also not being too expensive either. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people really buy into Hyundai lately. They're really enthusiastic about this brand, and for good reason. I think Hyundai and Kia, I think Koreans in general, the Korean brands in general, have a great sense of what American consumers are looking for. And Americans have always wanted to buy bigger vehicles. That's the way we are. And Hyundai has given us that ability where we can buy a two-row SUV or two-row crossover, and it's practical, it's enjoyable to drive, it's upscale, and I think it's better than the Chevrolets, the Fords, and the Toyotas of the world. And also, with mid-size crossovers, they're all really focusing on the sporty aspect, where Hyundai has gone in their own direction, where they're focusing on more of the refinement, luxury, and comfort. And I think Hyundai is one of the only brands that's doing that right now. So I think you should definitely, take a look at this vehicle because I think you will be impressed, but also I think you'll like the overall aspect of what this vehicle provides. So at the end of the day, after spending a good amount of time with the Hyundai Santa Fe, there's two key elements that really stand out to me about this vehicle and give me reasons to believe that the Hyundai Santa Fe is one of the best vehicles in its price range and segment. One being performance. I believe this vehicle performs really well, and I think it comes down to not only the turbo, but it being paired with a dual clutch transmission. So many brands right now are going with CVTs, and a lot of Americans don't like that feel. The CVT really makes a crossover feel sedated and just kind of more laid back and just not enjoyable to drive, and there's just that lack of engagement. Where the driving environment, the feedback that you get from the Hyundai Santa Fe is a breath of fresh air in this price range. Now, even though, the Hyundai Santa Fe is not a performance-oriented crossover, you get that initial performance on the low end. You get the torque. You do get thrown back in your seat at the beginning of an acceleration. And I believe Americans like that. They want to have that feedback. They want to feel that they're driving a more powerful vehicle. And that's exactly what Hyundai is offering here. But also, the way it drives, the driving dynamics, it's a nice, relaxing vehicle to be in. It's a vehicle that you want to go on long road trips with. And that's why I believe that it's worth taking a look at over, say, a compact crossover. Because if you do have a family, you want to have extra space. You want to have that extra practicality. And that's exactly what the Hyundai Santa Fe offers. Then number 2 on the list would most certainly be the luxurious aspect to the Hyundai Santa Fe. Whether it's the interior comfort and refinement or even just the exterior styling, Hyundai is really focused on giving you a great experience that when you're spending $40,000, you're not going to regret it. And when it comes to the interior, I love the button layout, but one thing that has stood out to me, and it's really just probably something that I'm focusing on just because I review cars on a weekly basis, is that I keep reaching for this rotary dial, thinking that I'll put the vehicle in park or reverse or drive when you have physical buttons on the left side to do that. So many brands are now going with the rotary dial look that it's just become second nature to me. It's a bad habit. But I think people are definitely going to like this, especially when it comes to the center console. Rather than gloss black bits, you have this fake carbon fiber weave, which some journalists would probably, criticized, but I think it gives this vehicle a lot of character, especially for a vehicle in this price range. But also, one thing I could go on about for hours is the soft touch padding found throughout the interior, which you just don't really see in this price range, and that's what really makes the Hyundai Santa Fe really stand out amongst the competitors. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.